Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adam and we are going to be talking about some of the stuff that I've put into my van electrical wise. So this is a quick overview of the stuff that we're using. It's mainly all Victron. I find Victron is a good make, solidly made. Yes, it's dearer, but you get what you pay for. So we start with the batteries. These are 105 amp an hour, 3.2 volts each cell. Combining in this configuration will give you a 12.8 volts battery at 105 amps. They will do 80% depth of discharge and they'll do 6,000 cycles, which is fantastic. Temperature wise, they will obviously stop charging at 0 degrees. I'd like to keep the batteries slightly warmer than that, so they do definitely charge in cold conditions. But heat pads and a little temperature sensor can actually bring a heat pad on to give you that temperature and bring the temperature up so you can actually charge. But we'll cross that bridge in a later video. So you also use the Victron Smart Shunt. This will do up to 500 amps through the shunt itself. Ideal, absolutely ideal piece of kit. It will give us an understanding of how much we're drawing out of the battery and how much we're putting into the battery. So we wire it up like this. We've missed out the BMSs for the batteries. Each battery bank at the bottom there will have a BMS on it, but just for illustration purposes, we'll just take it straight off the battery. So this is how we'll configure that through the shunt on the negative side, which will give you 12 volt at 420 amps an hour. I've also bought another set of 4 of these, so I've got potentially 840 odd amps, which will be on the van eventually. But at the moment, we're just running on the 420s, and we did all of 2022. Fantastic, had no problem. We cooked on it every night. We used the battery for the lights and charging phones and laptops, and the inverter is on all the time. The fridge is on all the time. Had no issues at all the events that we went to, just with the 400 amps. So I just want, especially for the winter time, I'd like to up that to 800 amps, doubling up on it, just so I've got that extra power. Just in case I need it. So potentially, hopefully, we don't have to run any generators if we're away at all, which is very annoying. So we also use the Victron Lynx Power In module. It's a busbar system. It accepts the mega fuses, the 100 amp and the 40 amps and so on, mega fuses. So this will start bringing down or giving you fault protection on a lower amount of current, and then we can distribute that to other things around the van. We also put in this Blue Seas Systems HD Series 3000, which will give us 600 amps continuous and 900 amp intermittent current flowing through this. So it's quite a beefy piece of kit, but you're going to need it if you're going lithium and you're putting a lot of current through it. So we wire that up to the Lynx Power In like this, so we can actually isolate everything on that Lynx Power In before it goes to the van electrics. We add into the mix this Phoenix 12 volt 3000 VA smart inverter. Fantastic, absolutely lovely piece of kit. I absolutely love it. It draws so little current, very, very small current if you're not actually pulling anything off of it, so it can stay switched on all the time. It's no bother. I don't switch it on and off. I just leave it running in my van all the time, and I just know that I can plug anything in at any time, switch it on, and I've got power without having to flick any other switches because it pulls so little in standby. So this requires a 400 amp fuse, which obviously comes from the Lynx Power In. I paid £883.94 for this inverter. At the time, this was early on in 2022. Obviously, prices have risen, so it's best thing to do is shop around. Hopefully, this will give you an idea of how much it is, so you can then shop around to get an idea of how much it will be now. Best place to go, I would certainly go and have a look at Van Junkies first. They seem to be the cheapest at the time. So this is how we wire up the inverter. So we come out of a 400 amp fuse in the Lynx power in and feed directly to the inverter. It is heavy gauge cable, which we've used, and I will put all the specs and everything in the description below. So we move on to the smart charge controllers, the MPPTs. I've used 2 of these 100 by 30s, so 100 volts it will take and 30 amps out. They're just PV in and then battery out on 2 of them. So we've added on the protection for those, which are DC MCB circuit breakers for solar. Make sure you get these particular ones. They are DC rated up to 400 volts. You can buy double poled trips, but they are not suitable for the DC side, so you must get the DC ones. They're very cheap. I found them on eBay, £11.99 each. Again, prices have probably gone up, so have a shop around and see if you can better that. If you can, leave a comment below. It'd be nice to know, with times as they are at the moment in late 2022, with prices going up through the roof. So yeah, leave us a comment. So we wire them up like this. So we've got 2 solar arrays. We've got a ground solar array and we've got a roof solar array. Just 2 panels on the roof, 2 panels on the ground at the moment. So I've just split it up so we've got 2 separate circuits. So they come in from the roof and the ground into the 2 DC isolators. From the isolators, they then go straight into the MPPT 130s. So then we come out of the MPPT straight into the Lynx power in, which in turn will then go into the batteries or into the van for usable power. Main side, so we've got incoming on the main side into one of these Blue Smart 12 volt 30 amp chargers. Smart charger, so it will trickle charge once the batteries are full. It will then go into just a trickle charge just to keep it maintained. It's fully intelligent, that's why it's smart. So it will determine if it needs to put in any more power into those batteries or not. It can also be switched over to a PSU mode. So you could have a 30 amp 12 volt PSU power supply unit to supply a particular equipment in the van if you wish. So we wire that up again straight into the Lynx power in and through the fuse inside the Lynx power in on a separate input. So this 2-position switch, we used these. They're 200 amp rated, 12 volts, and we use these on the small amount of power that we need coming off of the Lynx power in going into the fuse board itself. This is where I got it from. I got it from 12 Volt Planet, £14.64. Not going to break the bank, but it is a good product. Some of the eBay ones are very inferior. They're very cheap, and I wouldn't trust them. So it's best to spend a little bit more money. Again, £14.64. It's not going to break the bank, but it is a good piece of equipment from a reputable company. So that in turn will go into this, which is a 12-way fuse board. It's got LEDs on it to indicate if the actual fuse has blown, which I think is very handy. Plenty of terminals, and again, good quality. So we wire that up like this. So coming out of the Lynx power in on again a separate fuse, going through the 200 amp isolator switch, and then going into the fuse board itself, and then from there we then distribute off of that lower fault protection for those each individual fuses into different equipment in the van. So again, staying with the charging side of things, we've got 2 of these Orion TR Smart DC to DC charger units. They're rated at 30 amps each. They'll accept an input from 18 to 17 volts and an output. They'll put out 10 to 15 volts. At 30 amps or 360 watts. Very good pieces of kit. They are able to either monitor you starting your vehicle and the charge input, which will then trigger them to charge. Personally, I don't use that because I've got 2 linked up. I've got the little green link you can see down the bottom left hand corner there of the charger. Put into that a switch, a separate switch, which we could run off the AUXBEAM controller as well. So we've got it in the cab, so I can touch that switch and that will then engage the smart chargers. Now the only problem is you must remember to turn them off, which hopefully the AUXBEAM, I need to try it actually, hopefully the AUXBEAM, if it's onto the ignition, as soon as you turn the ignition off, I'm hoping the relays will drop out, in which case these will then stop charging. That's my thought process. I've got to test it, and I will test it, and I'll get back to you on that to see if that works, in which case we've now cured the problem. So we've got two of these in line, and there we go, bottom right hand corner there. So we've got the two cables coming in from the engine, the alternator. I have uprated the alternator to 220 amps, which I got from a supplier down in Essex. They supply the ice cream vans, which stay running all the time to provide power to the fridges and the freezers. And they have to have high amperage output, so I've changed the alternator for a 220 amp alternator, so I've got plenty of power. So those in turn going into these two smart chargers, pulling 60 amps, putting 60 amps straight into the links in turn putting that into the batteries or into the van itself. So we use the Victron Connect app on my phone to monitor everything. We've also got the Serbo GX and the touch display in the van, which will give us a visual of what the actual systems are doing, whether we're pulling power in, pulling power from the batteries or putting power into the batteries, how long it's going to be before the batteries are diminished. If the smart chargers are in bulk charge mode or float charge mode, if the MPPTs on the roof and the ground are how much power they're pulling in from the sun. Fantastic, everything all into one. We can then put that, if you wanted to, you could put that through your router, so you can connect it all up to your router through your Serbo GX. That will then put it up online, so you can have that information even away from your van, wherever you are in the world. You can log in and have a look and see what your van's doing and see where the charge or how the batteries are doing, or even switch stuff on and off as well. It's got the Serbo GX has got relays in it, so you can actually physically remotely from anywhere else, if you're out on a walk and you're coming back and you want to switch the heating on, potentially you could do that remotely. So I hope this has helped, and just a quick insight as to what I've put into my van so far, just to keep you up to date. We will be doing some more stuff in the van. I've been very busy with work, so I haven't had time to do any videos of anything that I've done with the van. And we've got some great stuff coming up in 2023. So to everybody that I've met this year, lovely to meet you guys. It's been fantastic. And those that I haven't met, hopefully I'll meet you in 2023 at some shows. So if you see me, come up, say hello by all means. I'm very approachable, and we can have a chat about electrics or vans. So happy new year to each and every one of you. Take care. See you in 2023. Goodbye.